So I'd just like to formally thank Chris Taylor for coming to games development here in UCD. You're our first kind of very big guest speaker. We've had previously a lot of former students come back as game developers. And this is something we're going to hopefully try to start and do more of. So it's just wonderful to have you here. And previously, me and Chris had a bit of a kind of long conversation, got to show him some of the work of the Beyond All Reason dev guys. They've been helping, allowing me to play test and give out about units for the last 2 years during the pandemic. So I really think they've done an amazing job. So hopefully give a chance to them a bit later on to say hi. And again, thanks for my students for coming in. I realize that this is the day before Good Friday. So a lot of people are running away for the long weekend. But I think Chris has had an amazing journey through his career. And I think we're just going to have a quick interview highlighting some of the parts there and going through. So let's kick off. So one of the first things, Chris, we kind of discussed is some of your your first work as a programmer. So I don't know if you want to just take a few minutes just to discuss with the class your sort of early work, that your experiences of being a programmer, that kind of hardball to sort of separating out the visuals and the simulation when computers were a lot less powerful than they are now.
Yeah, sure. So, man, I mean, I know we've got an hour? Is that what we've got? Yeah, and I could talk for an hour just about the early days. So I'm going to try to be brief, and then you can kind of direct me, and I'll go into more detail on some things. So the early days, like call it the mid to late 80s, right? These machines were super cool, but you couldn't like push the graphics around. So you had to update pieces of the screen. And when it came down to a baseball game, there was no question that you couldn't there was no really full screen rendering 3D. That did start to happen in the early 90s. So everything was tricks. So what happened was, an artist drew a baseball field for this game, Hardball 2, which was the follow-up to a game called Hardball by a then famous, probably not so famous now, but to my sort of group, Bob Whitehead was a big deal because he was at Atari, I believe, and then he went and he was one of the founders of Activision, and then he went on to found a company called Accolade, where he did this game called Hardball. And I was honored to do it, except that I knew nothing about baseball, and I really wasn't a sports guy at all. Like I really was. So it was a little bit like, okay, I've got this project, I've got to do a good job on it, but I really don't have an inspiration that comes from a love of the sport, which I highly recommend anyone who works on any project find something about it that inspires them. But regardless, I rolled up my sleeves. And when we got into the thing, I realized that, I had early on, I don't know whether you think of it as being in your DNA, but it's a thing for accuracy. Okay. Now, a lot of folks, when they get into simulation, when they get into game design and development, this can also be their, I don't know, Achilles heel. It can kill them because they'll go down a rabbit hole and they'll try for realism, and both realism in the physical simulation, but also realism in real life. Like if you're doing a war game and you say, well, like in Total Annihilation's case, you can't convert energy into metal. Okay. Like that's impossible, right? Like you can't convert, I mean, you'd need the power of a sun to make, small amounts. So you have to be able to do that. But when early on, I had enough sensibility, I guess you could call it, that when I did Hardball 2, I knew that if we had a 3D underlying mathematical model of the field, and we knew we had a 90-degree angle on the field, so at least we had that much, but the artist took liberty when they drew the bitmap outer field. And so what happened was, by building a 3D model of the field, and then reverse projecting the artist's embellishments of the back wall, which, by the way, if you took that back walls and you reversed the projection and you laid it down onto a piece of paper, like a baseball diamond, a top-down view of a baseball field, I mean, the fence would look crazy. no baseball fan would agree with that at all. But because it was visually correct in 2D, and when the ball traveled out into the field, it would bounce off the 3D model. Okay, the geometric representation in the computer, the ball would bounce exactly to the pixel off of the back wall. And that back wall, if you're a baseball player, which I'm assuming none of us probably are, I mean, it's not popular in Europe at all. The ball goes over the back fence. That's a home run. It bounces into the infield, gets picked up. Maybe you get a double or a triple. That is the difference between winning and losing the baseball game. So, of course, if your ball travels out into the field, and let's say the fence is here, okay, I don't know how I can illustrate this, and the ball goes above the fence and bounces in, that's bad, right? You were robbed of a home run. Now, let's say the other case happens. The ball goes below the fence and pushes through it. Visually, just goes right through the fence. And now you're on the other team and you're like, well, that's bullshit. That guy didn't get a home run, right? Like, you know, this is so important. And that's where I started this whole thing where I said, every pixel matters. Like every pixel on the screen matters. Now, the truth is that every pixel didn't matter to a lot of people. And you knew this when you played games and stuff was kind of sloppy and just didn't, and you were like, I don't know if I like this. But for me personally, every pixel mattered early on, and that carried through. And the mathematical, and I think the part that's kind of interesting about the story is, what I learned on Hardball 2, I carried through my game development career. So when I would be sitting there talking to Ron Gilbert about Total Annihilation, and I said, you know, the tank turrets should move fluidly, obviously, because they're rendered in 3D. The turret should elevate to the exact elevation, because why not? And when the gun fires, there would be recoil. And I remember this conversation. I would use my hands, just what I'm doing right now, but I was 29. And I said, you know, you've got the turret should recoil just like a tank, and there should be a muzzle flash, and the projectile should not emerge down here and sort of traverse conflict Z fight or whatever with the barrel. It should appear at the muzzle of the gun, which meant when you did the mathematics for the firing trajectory of the gun, and you plug that into the arc, you know, the formula for a projectile firing from an elevation to another elevation, you're using the 3D coordinate of the tip of the gun. You're not using any old random center coordinate for the tank. You're using exact mathematics. And this is kind of intellectually kind of hard or something, but it's not mathematically hard. Once you've built a formula, take an XYZ coordinate and say, we're going to fire on an XYZ coordinate, because you know the location of the unit that you're firing on, you're plugging this into a formula. You might as well use the real numbers. You might as well use the proper math. So in a sense, you can see a direct correlation between Hardball 2's bat contact, the hitting the ball and going out into the field, to a projectile of a tank. Who could have ever, if you had stopped me on my way home after I got the job and you said to me, Chris, I got to tell you something, like you're a force from another dimension, and you're going to say, do you realize what's happening right now? I would never have believed it, because it was perfect. Baseball was the perfect game for me to do. And I didn't know it at the time. And I was just kind of cursing under my breath a little bit, like, all right, well, I got a job as a game developer. Just too bad it's baseball. Anyways, man, I can talk a storm. So I hope there was some nuggets of.
That's exactly it. I had one of my
that was interesting in that.
Students, his first VR job was bowling. So the first Oculus game is Kevin Santiago, one of my former students. He ended up just doing bowling calculations for VR as his first game out the door. But yeah, but it's you get into the industry wherever way you can get in.
Yeah, when you think about a projectile as just a concept, and the collisions of projectiles, you realize like that just opens the door to a whole world. Like if you're doing billiards, right? You have a ball with a velocity. If you're doing bowling, you have a ball, you have contact. The math actually to compute the direction is actually pretty complicated. Thinking like you'd think it would just be trivial to compute a billiard ball But you not only have contact and the resultant two vectors that the two bodies take, you also have spin, and I'm sure the bowling calculations are trivial if you don't take the spin into account of the ball, of the bowling ball. But as soon as you take the spin into account, now you have all kinds of things. And if you don't get it right, people don't want to play the game, especially bowlers aren't going to want to play the game, right? They're going to say, this is ridiculous. This is so trivial. But one of the complicated things that I kind of just alluded to a moment ago, 5 minutes ago, was the fact that you have to know where to draw the line on realism. If you look at super popular games that we all have played and love, like StarCraft or League of Legends or what have you, right? I mean, they're sort of more, they have this more abstract, cartoony sort of representation of combat, right? Where there's a lot of area of effect weapons. I was always a little bit curious, or I don't know, what's the word? Not curious. I was always a little bit like, every time a unit fires, it fires and hits with 100% accuracy on its opponent if it's being targeted. Like that always like made me go, that's not how it is in real life. But again, that is not your guiding principle. Real life cannot be the thing that you always go back to. But if you're making a game like TA and you're all in, you go all in, and now you've got this cool stuff where you've got a long range artillery and it's kind of peppering. I mean, we see that unfortunately, we see that with the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, where you see fields with artillery rounds just literally pockmarking like the moon, because these things are just not accurate at distance, right? Even the super hyper accurate artillery are still not going to hit exactly the dead center of something they're aiming at. They're getting better and better all the time, which is both a good and bad thing, by the way. But the fact is a game that would just take all of that variability out, just to me wasn't as interesting. How about if I put it that way? So that was
on to that next stage of your career where you were a game designer. You were the guy in charge.
Well, yes. So what happened very subtly? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Go. Just to.
Well, you get a job as a computer programmer of a game company. You don't immediately assume in the next breath that you're the designer and that you're the lead designer, right? These are very different jobs today, right? I mean, in fact, there's a whole design team today on these games. I mean, there's probably at a Bungie, for example, that's over here in Bellevue, that has probably 1,000 people in that company, right? There's probably a whole division of designers, and there's engineers way over in the back. And some of those engineers may or may not even talk to those designers, right? There may be layers of communication. But back in the good old days, when we were packing sidearm, I'm kidding. We basically had all this, power at our fingertips. We could go to lunch and come up with an idea and later that same day be coding it, because there was no one to stop you. Yeah, your manager might come along and say, why aren't these other things that you committed to, this month or to get, how come they're falling behind or what have you? We didn't get a lot of that either. We actually were just kind of Wild West. We did what we wanted. Management kind of just looked over our shoulder and said, this looks like it's making progress. Because like back in those days, there was like 20 games being developed in an office with like 60 people. Can you imagine? We were sharing art resources, like artists that would generate art. They do some art for you and they do some art for someone else. They do some art and you'd say, and you'd get art and you'd use programmer art in the meantime. And we had one sound designer who would design all the sound. Chris Hatlelid would do all the music. And then we started getting more and more musicians as we scaled up. EA Canada was what happened to the company. I was at this company called Distinctive Software, a little tiny developer, and it grew up to a certain size. And then Electronic Arts, Trip Hawkins, bought Distinctive Software, and then that company ballooned out into being thousands of people, largest developer under one roof in North America at one time. And that was where FIFA Soccer, which you guys probably all have played, I'm guessing. There's some soccer fans on this call. That's where FIFA Soccer was developed. And Jan Tien and Joey Della Savia and Bruce McMillan and Mark Obenall, all working on this FIFA Soccer game, a couple of cubicles over from me, was, you know, a massive production compared to when I started on Hardball 2, even Triple Play, which was done after FIFA Soccer, because it was a sort of a simpler endeavor, but still a pretty good sized team. But anyway, I'm getting way off topic here. The early days, the lead programmer and the lead designer was in the same head, which in that case was my head, which meant that, you know, you could make design decisions and then come in on the weekend or do whatever, and you could write a POC, a proof of concept, or work on that idea without getting express permission, without papering it up into a request and submitting it to some sort of design, group. So that was cool, right? I mean, that was fun. I mean, you guys are recapturing a lot of that. See, that's what I kind of like about the indie industry, right? And that's what I like about what I'm doing. I'm very part-time, very, very fractured in my time on my project, Intergalactic Space Empire. But indies capture that back, that 80s, early 80s, late 80s, maybe possibly early 90s vibe, which, I mean, when you're making a game with 1,000 people, like a Bungie title, you know, that's really kind of a world of game development that I personally don't enjoy. Like, I'm sorry, it's maybe I'm too egocentric or old fashioned or whatever. I want to see the work I do really impact the experience with more meaning, not just be cast of thousands, you know, in the process, where you're like, whether you got fired halfway through or whether you started or whether you did whatever you did, it didn't matter to the outcome of the game. Like, you had no meaningful impact on the game, right? That's kind of turning it into a bit of a factory thing, which you know, the industry did that. It went in that direction where things just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and out of control and kind of crazy in that sense. And these games cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make. And then we have this other thing, that the indie, which is kind of holding on to the good old days. And by the way, if you asked anyone who has all the passion, I think you're pretty much going to get the same answer from, the majority of the people are going to say it's in the indie side. It's not in the where people go to work and they're worried about their annual review and how much money they're making and blah blah blah. Kind of turned it into like they were working in any other big industry, any other big computer industry, right? Like, it's people leave those jobs because they want to go work in the indie and they'll take a pay cut because they want to be close to the what they're creating, the art. They're getting away from the objective and they're moving to the subjective, which is, I think, I should probably paper something like do a blog or something on objective versus subjective. Like Enterprise Cloud that I work in most of the time now is very objective. You either build something and it works or it doesn't. But in video games, it's very subjective. You could build it and it could be perfect technically and fail because because the subjective component of that experience is not, it's art, and people don't like that art. You either like a piece of art or you don't, or maybe you're in the middle. But that's, to me, that's sort of it sounded like a paid advertisement for the indie industry, but that's how I kind of feel about it. Anyway, sorry, help me out here. Give me my next.
So basically,
on track.
Given those experiences, then you kind of moved to Cave Dog, become now game designer. So how did that journey sort of feel, that you were coming up with the mechanics of a game, trying to figure out what your next game is going to be, what they want you to do, what Gilbert wants you to do within the space?
Yeah. So a little bit of history. When I worked on Hardball 2, there was a producer on that title. Her name was Shelley Day, and she worked at Accolade. And I kept in touch with her when she went to Taito. Taito was a Japanese company. I think that Breakout, might have been a Taito game, or one of the arcade games like Super Break. I don't know what it was. It was like they arcadified it. And she went on to LucasArts, where she met Ron Gilbert. Now, I mean, you guys are probably familiar with Ron Gilbert, creator of the Scum scripting utility for Maniac Mansion, Scum, and also God, why am I totally blanking now?
Monkey Islands and
Monkey Island. Thank you. Monkey Island. He just put out a game that I got. I got it off Kickstarter because it's so called a Thimbleweed Park. And Ron and I got introduced via Shelley. And Shelley and Ron and I hit it off. And he said, "What do you want to do?" Like from a design perspective. And I said, "I want to make a game like Command and Conquer, but I want to do it all in 3D, and I want to do it with real physics, and I want it to be much more over the top, much more visceral and insane and what have you." As you can imagine, I was telling him this, and he said, "That sounds great. We make kids games here at Humongous Entertainment." And I knew that. So he wasn't saying it actually sarcastically. He was like, "But so we don't have a team that you can just come in and just kind of direct creatively and what have you. So you have to build it." And in fairness, he really did help build that team. I mean, we hired a lot of folks that I knew from the industry, but also that he knew, that was in the local Seattle community. We kind of referred and brought people in, and we recruited, and there was lots of people involved that RT should get credit for building this team inside of a kids game, what's called a kids game company. The kids games, because they were kids games, they called the game that I was working on, which was codenamed, you guys may know this because you're probably a little more historically up to speed. It was called the Really Cool War Game. And because that's as far as I was concerned, that's what it was going to be. Do you guys know that? Do you guys happen to know that bit of history?
Some of the bar guys might have, but I didn't know that actually.
Yeah. Really Cool War Game. I mean, it's sort of, oh, isn't that cute? Now looking back on it, however many years, 26, I don't know how many years, too many years.
26 is about right. It's 97.
Is it 20? Oh, I got it right. I just pulled the number out of my ass and I got it right. Okay, that's good. Go with your first guess. Life lesson right there. And I started working on it, and I worked on it for 6 months before there was anyone else working on it. And I was prototyping the pathfinding. I was learning A-star pathfinding, implemented a really primitive version of it before Jeff Petkow rewrote it. I built the terrain using a simple height mesh. Then I prototyped a box, a rectangle that I was able to define without a 3D program. I just literally punched in the coordinates of a rectangle box that looked like a box of cookies, but it was moving over the terrain. I remember clicking, and the A-star, would give this thing a path, and I wasn't doing any height, with A-star, you're supposed to put in values that represent steepness so that it would go around a steep thing and do that, but it didn't. It would just climb over the top of a mountain. And I'll tell you guys this, and I don't think I've told anyone this story, so you're the first, is that when that box, that rectangular box, rocked and moved and rolled and went up over the top of this piece of just computer geometry, it was just like a tear in your eye. You're just like, wait until that is a tank. Wait until that is a unit in this world, and it's doing that. That's going to blow people's minds. It even brings a tear to my eye now. Crazy, right? Just remembering that experience and knowing it was going to be amazing. And I mean, frankly, can I say this to you guys? I mean, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And we knew, and Ron started giving me people. Clayton Kozlarek, who is the lead artist and visionary behind, behind creating that terrain, which I was it called Bryce? It was like this, I forget the name of it. It was Bryce. He created it in this 3D tool. And I think he had an old license or he got a demo. Everything we did was on the cheap. Okay. Everything was on the cheap. You know, this saying, which we've all heard, necessity is the mother of invention. 100% true for this game. Everything was necessity. when we went to get a 3D program to actually model the units, I'm sorry if I'm kind of jumping all over here. We couldn't afford, because, you know, this company wasn't just burning money to just go out and buy 3D Studio Max or Maya. So there was this lesser known 3D program called Lightwave, which, by the way, is the definition. I think the folks who created the OBJ format. You guys familiar with the OBJ format? One of you might, one or two of you.
Yeah,
right? They were the ones who I believe created that. So we do at the time, and so it was $1,000 for a used copy of Lightwave. And we used a used copy to develop all the 3D units for Total Annihilation. Anyway, this is sounding very nostalgic now and probably not as productive as getting into the more technical details. But that was me and Clayton for the better part of the first year until the late in 96, 95. Because we developed all through 95 until September of 97. Sorry, I'm off by a year. So I started in January, literally pulled the computer out of the box on January 4th or January 5th of 96, blank. You know, it was like blank canvas, start coding. And by September 4th of 97, it was my birthday. Coincidentally, we shipped the game out, and we called it shipping. By the way, that was just like the thing we called it. We called it shipping. I don't know if people call it shipping anymore.
Still used as a phrase for a good few of them.
Yeah, like when you move a game from one system to another, you call it porting, because we actually used the RS-232 port to move the bits, because you couldn't. There was no Ethernet. You weren't even on a network, okay, or a token ring network or anything. So you had to take it and put it on. Some machines had compatible formats. You could actually get away with it in the later days, but you had to use RS-232 and port it.
Shipping
anyway,
TA. And at the same time, advertising for it, which was what that image you had of going over the hill. For me as a kid, it was seeing a magazine, and I played Command & Conquer and I played Doom 2, but they'd always felt a bit limiting to me. But it was seeing this full, I think it was a 2-page magazine ad, which was the kind of Attack on the Coast sort of Normandy landing style, and just individual pointers to, and this can land ships, and this unit at height will have a bigger range. This bot will climb up a hill better than this tank. And you just pointed out all of the features of the game. And I was just like, I'm so getting this game. There's just no question on this. And
I played a pretty big role in creating that ad, and I wrote those callouts.
Yeah,
those callouts were actually written by me, because I knew what the game better than anybody. Obviously, I was the lead designer and lead engineer and team leader. So I wrote and I pitched Ron that ad concept, and I thought he would say no, because if you go back in time to that, every ad hid the game. There was we called it airbrushing. An artist would airbrush a hero with a sword climbing on a, whatever, and chopping heads off, whatever. And these boxes were all like fake. And you go into a store. I don't know if you guys are old enough to do that. Remember, at least a sliver of it. You go into a store and then you grab a box off the shelf and you'd flip it over to see the little tiny screenshots on the back that were done in these little RG, like shitty little, because they shrunk it down, because the publisher and the marketing people didn't want you to see the game. They wanted you to spend the money and hope that you were satisfied with the experience once you got home. It was all very disingenuous. It was all very manipulative. So I said to Ron, let's take a big screenshot. And then he probably, we were very collaborative back and forth. And he probably said, well, let's do a double page. And, we built it up. And we had to take screenshots. So Clayton took screenshots and composited this giant thing, which was very much a harbinger of things to come, right? Because as resolutions got higher and monitors got bigger and wider, right? That actually came to be. But back then, that was like crazy to do what we did. And I remember Lewis Castle. This is a true freaking story. He's one of the founders, along with Brett Sperry, of Westwood Studios, creators of Command & Conquer. 10 years later, telling me when that magazine arrived at Westwood, and they opened it up and they saw that double page Total Annihilation ad and said, what the hell? what is this? And kind of sighed, like had a gasp of what's going on here. Now, they always beat us in sales. Okay, I'm just gonna say that in case Lou sees this video, they always kicked our ass in sales. Blizzard always kicked our ass in sales. People always wanted the more cartoony, more abstracted RTS games. But obviously, as you guys know, there's a group of people who really appreciated the pixel accurate simulation of Total Annihilation. But thank you for bringing back the memory of that ad. I still have that ad because I put it on my wall with a pin in it.
I actually I have it here actually.
Oh, you do?
On our Discord actually sent it. So just give me a second here and I can share the screen.
I actually have the paper, like the that they sent me from the ad for the ad, the actual print. And it's just, I have so much shit. It's hard to keep track of everything. I'm just waiting in video game nostalgia here. So there it is. There it is.
Yeah. So so we won't, I can't show it to the here. So everybody online is seeing this, but my class isn't. So we'll go over things. But again, launching an air invasion, controlling the high ground, taking out the radar, true 3D terrain. This was just, I remember as a kid just going like, this is it. High altitude bombers, air raids, 3D paths, everything going over, bombarding from the sea. You even have, I think that's a nuke being destroyed by a Pee-wee there, and everything going in. So I'm going to stop that share there. So we go back to seeing you there.
Yeah, man, we could spend an hour just talking about that ad. I mean, this is kind of freaking me out a little bit.
I want to keep kind of moving on to just for the games development class. That idea of mechanics that you kind of came up with for TA, you kind of told me a story a little bit about one issue you had with Command and Conquer was when units would just be bought and just come out from magic. Well, the TA mechanic of metal and power there and energy kind of coming in.
Yeah, so one of the themes, obviously, of what we're talking about today is when you use reality and when you don't. And I was heavy on the reality side, and sadly, I still am, because I think that it's always kind of made things harder to do. But when we go to a movie and we see the Hollywood clip, we don't mind if they swap the clip out in the middle of the scene, snap another clip in there. You know what I mean? Like, you can have some continuity in an experience, and it doesn't destroy the art. But with the metal energy economy, we could talk about that economy model, because I was a little bugged that what would happen in Command and Conquer was you had the Tiberium deposits and they didn't replenish, they didn't grow back. Like, that would have been interesting if there was a geometric algorithm that said that, and they're crystals, so that's not really even viable. But what would happen is you deplete everything. And then if it was a balanced map, you'd throw everything at each other and it would sort of deplete the resources down. And then I used to joke at, like, sort of at lunch, you know, having a burrito, I'd say it's like the end of the game, the big climax of Command and Conquer was two guys fighting with a knife. Come on, let's do this. And you're like, wait a minute, we had an army of tanks 10 minutes ago and they're all eliminated. They all got reduced. And now there's just I'm selling my walls. Remember that? You sell your walls, get a little cash back. It's like you were rich and you're pawning shit off to fight the last gasp of a war. It didn't work for me. I know that studying World War II exhaustively, they didn't really run out of resources. They did, but they ran out of the money, they ran out of the people, they ran out of a lot of things to protect those sites. I mean, if you have an iron mine and it's being bombed every day, right? That doesn't do you. So there was a this is really important. There was a geo relationship to your resources, which meant that if you captured more territory, like Hitler at one point was moving tanks down to capture oil fields in North Africa, I think he was doing something like this. And then the Russians came in and he said, no, oh my God, okay, tanks. And then he was doing a lot of this, you know, like situations that happened at the Battle of Midway with the Japanese. If you guys know the Pacific War, like, they changed their minds about what they were doing and it would screw them. right? You cannot, create a plan and stick to it. These guys never got that memo. So they would change, they would get, move over here, move over there. You guys have all been in a game of Total Annihilation or even Supreme Commander where you keep changing your mind and you die, right? You cannot keep changing your mind. Sometimes you get lucky and you're like, but that was something that I wanted to bring to the game experience, where if you took terrain, you got resources from terrain. That's why the metal deposits were out there. That was why that was such an important thing, and that they were continuous. Once you seized that control of that, but when the enemy can come along and bomb it, right, and take it out. So you needed to have metal, you needed to have resource deposits that you could protect. So you couldn't just scout out into the world and then just do a kind of a land grab and go, ha ha ha, now I'm going to sit back and build all this stuff. No, you had to protect them. And the enemy could go after your economy. This was a really important thing in war. You can go after their military or you can go after their economy. And frankly, if you want to win a war today, I still pretty strongly that you got to go after the economy, but sometimes you can't, as we're seeing. So you have to go after the war machine that they put together. So it's hard to talk about war and not think about real life war, which I talk about on one of my blog posts, on my last blog post on Kanugi, because it's I'm learning a lot about war. That it was easier to learn about war and bring the design lessons into a game when the war was kind of in the rearview mirror more. But when war is like happening around us in the world, it's a little harder for me at my age, but I'm trying to intellectually navigate that. But that was the resource model, and people didn't know. They were like, is this going to work? And I have to admit, like, secretly, I was like, this feels good and it played well. I hope it flies. I hope it works out. And I guess you could say it did. We did it again in Supreme Commander. And by the way, I mean, you guys know the economy in terms of tuning and balancing that economy. I mean, that's hard, right? I mean, I hear all kinds of stories like, we get all these computers, we bring them over to my friend's house, we'd network them all together, and we'd start a game on Saturday and we'd finish on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so maybe the tuning and balancing wasn't right, but they always said they had a lot of fun. And they were some of the greatest memories of their life. Some people got divorced over the game. One guy told me he wouldn't stop playing the theme song. Maybe it was Dungeon Siege. And his wife said to him, if you don't stop playing that, I'm leaving you. And he refused to stop playing it. I think that was actually the Dungeon Siege theme. And they got divorced. I got a feeling that marriage wasn't that strong.
I don't think so.
I thought. Anyway, the economy I could talk about for hours, but you tell me if you want me to go further.
That brings us sort of on that, like, you've done TA, but then you've got a next story where you actually become a founder and you start Gas Power Games, and we have Dungeon Siege. Where you're now in that sort of more leadership role, and you're giving a very high level goal to the development team to have these levels that are continuous. So you want to talk a little bit about that, about setting those sort of goals, and then the team rising up to the challenge and working on things like the entity component system.
Yes, it was the very first time in my gaming career that I really had to let go of the engineering side of it. And now I'm not telling you guys that I'm the greatest computer programmer that ever lived, and that, that I had to be hands on the code. Secretly, I probably learned on TA that when Jeff Petkow came in, Jonathan Maver came in, and so many of the other engineers that you probably know the list better than me now, because you guys are sort of studying this historically. Brian Brown on the scripting system, he used like a Lexan Yak style to build a kind of a Lua equivalent. These guys were experts in their subject matter, right? Like Jonathan was an expert on graphics, and so I kind of had a clue that you can't do it all yourself. Well, I guess I didn't really learn that lesson, because here I am. I'm not the fastest learner. I mean, I'm not the sharpest, whatever, knife in the drawer. So I basically, I let go of the steering wheel, the code, and I went for design vision. And the name of that design document was called RTSF RPG, because I was going to bring RTS components to a fantasy role-playing game or an action fantasy role-playing game. And that's what the document that I submitted to Microsoft for whatever tentative approval, they signed the contract with me and said, go build this game. And I had to produce some paper, like I had to produce a design document. And one of the things that really bothered me about, again, it was Command and Conquer for Total Annihilation, but it was Diablo. I was playing Diablo, and I was like, oh, these loading screens are killing me. I'm always looking at the bar, and my inventory was so small. I was ADD or whatever you call it. What is the word when you have to get every goddamn thing that drops in the dungeon and bring it back to sell? Like, you just see money on the ground, right? So you haul the loot back to town, you get rid of it, you go back down, and you spend all your time just carting loot back and forth, watching the bar.
You've been given a job. You're not playing a game anymore. You're doing a job.
Right. And I played all the way to the end. I killed Diablo, and I was like, all right, I'm going to make one of these. Now, I would have made another RTS game right away, except that I was really worried about the legal ramifications of leaving Cave Dogs or Humongous and having, because Ron and I weren't on the best of terms when I left. He was a little pissed off. And I didn't quite know what his tolerance was for that behavior. So I said, I'm going to make an RPG game. I mean, this is where legal enters the world of game design. See, shit's starting to get real, right? I mean, I just want to make video games, and now I'm worried about law. You know, that, and by the way, that never stopped. That just kept going and going and going. Lawyers became a bigger and bigger part of my life till it hit the, the crescendo. You just legal lawyers, right? Although I never got into a lawsuit. I was really proud of that, but that cost me millions to stay out of a lawsuit, because what you do is you give in. You say, I don't want to go to court. I don't want to sit in a courtroom. So you don't go to court. You let the money go. And that's a story. That's a whole story for another day, which probably isn't the smartest use of any of our time. But the reason we did the RPG game was to avoid that. And then I wanted to fix that. I wanted to have a giant inventory. I wanted to bring some of the RTS sensibilities to the team control. And some people criticized me in the articles that were written. They said, this game practically plays itself, because if you have a group of tanks, right, they're all automatically going to shoot at stuff and do stuff. And if you've got a repair bot in there, it's going to repair stuff. So like, it was like, hey, you can do all this automatic shit. And you were basically playing an action role-playing game with a team, with a party on automatic party management. And, you know, you got a pack mule, and you guys play any Dungeon Siege?
I played Space Siege, actually, is the main one I played through, actually.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
that's another one.
I got through that.
Everyone's here. Do you not see the row of line behind you?
Oh,
See the what?
oh.
Well,
So-
no, look, it looks like a parking line. What?
Oh,
I
I've
see
got
the box.
people
There's a
here.
box.
Just give me a second.
Yeah,
They
like
probably
this.
don't
I think they just
realize.
forgot to remove it.
Yeah. We got mute. We're muted there. We're all good. Yeah, we're all good.
Hello.
Sorry, you back there?
So I was rambling about
Yeah. So basically, moving to
the
that.
design motivations for Dungeon Siege, continuous world, get rid of the loading screen, jack up the inventory, create something that's more fun. And the cherry on top for me was the skill-based class system, which meant that you built your skill by doing like you do in real life. Again, the real life page I took from real life was, I'm not born into the world and I'm a brain surgeon. I have to train for decades to become a brain surgeon. So why am I in an RPG game picking this like out of the box, right? So I always thought it was cool to start with a farmer, a humble farmer who was played by Jason Statham in the movie. You guys ever see the movie? Okay, that's another story for another day. He's humble farmer who's a martial artist. Okay. Okay. So anyway, those were the design motivations. And then I had to let this engineering team build it, which was really hard to do because they made their own decisions about what they were going to do. And they were a bunch of very smart people, but they had to find their way through the labyrinth of figuring out how to build this game. And I'm sure many of them would cuss me out if they said, Taylor, if you just had not said the words continuous world, If you had just not said that, we could have delivered the game a year sooner and had profit. But I had to get rid of those loading screens. And I don't know if that mattered at the end, to be honest with you, but hey,
the influence of like the entry component model, and now it's put entry components. I mean, that's influenced so much of games development now in the decades previous, that like you did start a spark that then got taken in. In fact, it's taught in computer science schools. I mean, this is something that got built in, that got presented at SIGGRAPH, that built up. So it's amazing to see it got spawned from maybe a crazy demand, but a demand no less of like, no, the game needs this.
Yeah, I think was it Scott Bylas? I think you know more about this stuff than me. Scott has a huge brain, and he was super passionate. I mean, in a way, you couldn't convince him of anything other than what he wanted to do. So you let him do his thing. And he built stuff. I mean, my brain is so full of stuff. It was called the FUBI, the function binding system, that allowed him to bind to scripts, and it wasn't compile time. I think it was runtime, and it was way over my head. He was building stuff that was voodoo to me. It was just like magic to me, because I mean, of course, I'm sitting in my office dealing with payroll and with banks and lawyers and publisher relationship. I mean, who knew managing the publisher became a gigantic pile of work? I remember driving over to Microsoft, which was 15 minutes from my office, just fuming like those, and it was not like they were doing anything particularly wrong, or perhaps maybe I was. It's just the relationship of when you're building something for millions of dollars creates stress. And your guts are always like anxious over things, and payroll has to be made. And I don't know if you guys ever read the article in Game Developer. I've actually got it framed out on my wall. I mortgaged my house over and over again to make payroll.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't getting enough money from the publisher, or it would come in late. And that's where my head started to go as we moved through the Dungeon Siege game.
And then you moved on then to finally come back to Supreme Commander and actually got to do something very interesting from mechanics point of view, that strategic zoom that I got to show you the demo of the bar guys from the Spring engine to them to actually do that with TA.
Okay. I got to tell you guys, I wrote the design for Supreme Commander. I got up Saturday morning because I had to, because this company at the time, it was Ascendant or CUC or Sierra. They were all part of this big company, and they said, we need the design document in order to sign the deal. And I was like, it's fair. So I got up Saturday morning at 6 a.m. and I typed for 6 hours, and I got halfway through, and I got up Sunday morning at 6 a.m. and I typed again. And I had the design for Supreme Commander, but I didn't have a name. I forget what I called it. It's just RTS Next or something like that. Took a page from Steve Jobs. And I know any Steve Jobs historians. But anyway, I didn't end up signing the deal with them. I signed the deal with EA. Supreme Commander, do you guys know this? Signed a game with EA? You guys know this part of the story? Oh my God. So anyways, EA, Sierra, I think it was, or their affiliates was $6 million. And EA said, oh, we'll give you 7. And I said, I already signed it with them, but they haven't countersigned. So I quashed, legal term, a contract and signed it with EA. EA funded the game for a year, canceled the game. I signed it with THQ. That's a whole story. But back to the point, which was strategic zoom. I hadn't come up with the idea of strategic zoom. I basically was staring at the game and thinking, God, this is strategy. This is an RTS. This is strategy. And these RTS games, it's like the light bulb came out of my head. They're real-time tactical. You guys know Omaha Beach is famous, or sorry, Operation Overlord, where they land on all the beaches.
Yeah. And
you think, well, where does the strategy happen? Where does the tactics happen? We've all seen Saving Private Ryan, probably, or most of you.
It's actually
when
shot.
Tom Hanks, what's that?
It was actually shot in Ireland. Just saying.
Oh, there you go. This is a
Yeah.
great movie, right? Another one of Spielberg's great movies. Well, when you're pinned down on the beach and Hanks is saying we got to put together the Bangalores to blow the wire and get through the defense systems, right? Those are tactics. It's not like they were talking back, the day before saying, when we get on the beach, I mean, we're going to bring the Bangalores along because we're probably going to need them. That was strategic to bring them. It wasn't strategic to deploy them. It was tactical, right? So we had this thing where people were calling RTS real-time strategy. And I'm like, the only strategy that happens in an RTS game is at the very beginning when you decide kind of how you're going to approach the game. But when you're in it and shit's getting real, you're tactics. You're all tactics. Well, I wanted to bring strategy back. Well, how can I have strategy if I'm not Eisenhower? If I'm not seeing the entire theater of war? Eisenhower was the supreme commander of the Allied forces. If you look it up on Wikipedia, he was the supreme commander. So of course, when I saw that, I was like, holy, like, shit. I've been working with RTS. It's been years. And now I realize supreme commander is who the player is. The player is the supreme commander. Huh? How did I miss that? Google, some guy in Florida, of course, he'd kill me if he's watching this. He probably will, and then he'll kill me. Owned the domain. And I had to go and get that because back then you don't even bother trying to name your game something if somebody owns the thing, right? So we went and we paid him and we got the URL supremecommander.com. And we were all full steam ahead. And everybody seemed to like the name. Everyone seemed to agree with me. And I'm a salesman, so I sold. I always sell vision, by the way. Selling. Always be selling. Anybody? Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross. Some of you guys are like, this guy's crazy. Well, if you wonder, now you know. Now you don't have to wonder anymore. So anyways, I told one guy who leans into my office after lunch and he hangs on the door and he kind of looks in my office and goes, Supreme Commander, huh? And I go, yeah. And he goes, it's the worst name I've ever heard. I'll never forget that. I appreciate that he said that to me because it makes such a great story. Remember, when people do crazy shit in your life, they're helping you build great stories. That is the best part. Normalcy and ordinary shit that happens does not make for good stories. Anyways, Supreme Commander was like seriously the greatest name for a video game, for an RTS game. I feel like it wins 10 out of 10. And it was the strategic zoom. It was the economy that comes in. It was the land, sea, and air. It all came together in Supreme Commander. And then, of course, the technical lift was sort of like a continuous world all over again, but this time for terrain, but much simpler problem to solve. But it was like, yeah, damn it. And when I went in, I checked art programs. Like I load up an art program that you could move a larger canvas around. They all, when you hit the keyboard or you did anything at all, it would always zoom to the center of the screen. Or if you clicked over somewhere, it would it was all herky-jerky. And I was like, come on, zoom under the mouse. It was the simplest concept to simply zoom under the mouse. In the mathematics of, one of you guys have probably done this in bar, but why wasn't anyone doing it? I've got a cursor, I've got a wheel. I want to go there, wheel in, wheel out. I want to go there, wheel in, wheel out. So strategic zoom and the zoom under the cursor. You can't really have strategic zoom without zoom under the cursor. They go together like this, okay? And I think hopefully you guys really can appreciate my passion that I'm reigniting for that day.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's
2002.
Yeah, very long time ago. But I do want to give a chance just for some of the people online, because we've done lots of being phenomenal going through this bit, and we do have a little bit more we could talk about your current cloud-based, and you talked a little bit about that. So we did a bit of jumping ahead and jumping back, which is perfectly fine. So I just want to give a chance if any of the guys online, if you want to chat, type into chat there. We can answer a couple of questions if anybody has anything specific. If not, I've got lots of questions. So and I've got the advantage that I got to have a good chat there. Oh, okay. So the first one, if you could go back and change one thing about TA, and I'd probably include a little bit Supreme Commander in this as well, is there something you would change about them?
That's a good question. The game was very ambitious, and ambition can really screw you And I probably sort of jeopardized, you see this played out in movie plots, right? People who want to rescue everyone, so they jeopardize the lives of everyone to rescue one more person. That's a living, breathing concept in game design and the scope and scale of games. You really want to implement a crawl, walk, run strategy where you get core gameplay and then you build on it. I'm telling you, that's the piece of advice of the day for game designers and developers. I didn't have that. Everybody had to fit through the doorway on this one at one time. Everyone had to get in the chopper. You know, it was probably ambition that I probably would have scaled down. But the economy, the runaway economy, I didn't put the thought into what happens if you, the nukes were sort of a way to be game enders, as we called them, you know. But as you know, I had to put in anti-nukes. And I had to make the anti-nukes a lot cheaper. Jake McMahon tuned it, and I was directing him on that particular issue of tuning because I knew that I would be infuriated if someone nuked my base, but I would be less infuriated if I didn't build anti-nukes. So the attitude was like, well, I was complacent, right? So I'd probably revisit the economy in a much more serious way if I could go back. Okay. That was probably too many words for that.
No. Tyvion, the guy who's responsible for the servers and connecting all the bar stuff. He says there's a bar tourney this weekend. They'd love to see you join and play the game and join in. So I don't know if that would be an option.
That's got to happen at some point here. Timing wise, it's always a question, but let's work on something where we get to play together, or maybe you guys can send me the info and I can watch. Hey, I just bought this rig because everybody's got one, all the cool kids have got one, I just don't have the microphone yet. It's coming on Friday, right? Is it the same one?
I definitely think the bar guys would love you to come on attorney and just watch and commentate. I think I'm speaking for them, but I'm definitely sure all of them would be so excited to have you that for.
Well, let's figure it out. Let's see if we can figure it out.
I'll connect you up with the guys. I've got your email, so I'll connect them all together, so you can talk to them directly.
Use this. It's very. I feel like an imposter. Like, imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah.
I'm not real. This isn't real shit. Anyway, okay. Next question.
So let's see. I'm trying to figure this one out. Yeah, I have a funny feeling that's not. I think I'll ask this as a more general question. In doing the maps for like TA and Supreme Commander, was that something you got involved in, of just trying to play test them and see how they worked? Because a lot of those old TA maps have they've been translated by the bar team all the way up to now.
Nathan Doster did all of the you're talking TA, right? So yeah. He did a ton of maps. There was a bunch of folks, and I'm gonna just get in so much trouble. You guys will find this if you start rattling off thanks, you're gonna miss someone. So you get almost in more trouble than you do by trying, unless you get 100%. But anyway, there was a lot of talented people. I generally did not get too deep into the map creation process. Okay, both on TA and on Supreme Commander. It's time consuming and it's noodly, and you play test and you have to take feedback and modify it. So honestly, if there's anything you guys really loved about map design, I don't get a whole lot of credit. Which, I get enough credit. I get more than my fair share of credit, so I don't need more credit. But Nathan did a lot of work. Obviously, there was other people. And that's Seaton's clutch, I believe, not Senton's clutch. But that's probably just a quick typo.
Hey, I actually remember. Next question. This again, was TA using just A star, or was it kind of using a hierarchical A star? Or do you remember? This is the more random.
It was not using hierarchical, if I recall. It was using, I think, what we call double A star. You guys familiar with double A star? Anybody?
Not too familiar.
Whoa, double A star. So when you imagine the map is my screen, and if I start filling from here, I fill all the way out to the edges, and then it goes all the way back to here, right? That's single A star. If I do double A star, I start filling at both, and when they touch, I cut down the amount of traversal by at least 50%.
Hmm.
So double A star was what Jeff ended up implementing, I believe. And then of course that went through many advancements in Supreme Commander to where we get to flow field, which you guys are probably really familiar with the flow field stuff. So
yeah, so actually I've you talking about flow field as a little video in the list of pathfinding things there, because you did a little ad for flow field. So it's nice just to use the example going through. And
that's a good video example.
So the next one is, what is the most awesome or joyful moment during the making of TA?
So many. Probably once we started playtesting and we're all whooping and hollering and screaming because we played a real game. Like we actually played beginning to end a real game. And we saw the bedlam on the screen and kind of couldn't believe we created it. But that wasn't I can't remember a single day of like a moment, like a specific moment. It was just this feeling of just pure energy watching, like, you guys know, I feel like I'm tired of telling you stuff you already know. Like it's just exploding everywhere and shit's flying in and the planes and boats and shit's sinking and parts are flying and there's explosions and shit. And we're like, we've never seen anything like that before in our lives. Like we have not seen anything like that. No Hollywood movie blows that much shit up. And the fact that the name was called Total Annihilation was just like, you know, it was just like, is this really happening? Because that was what I just watched a moment ago is Total Annihilation. And when you have a name, now that name I didn't think was that brilliant. As it goes, I didn't self-proclaim brilliance on that one, but I tell you, there was a lot of names. Total Destruction, you know, and all, like every single combination of words to say the equivalent. And I wrote a giant list out, and Ron Gilbert went through it. And he shaved it down on like 10 or 15 names, and Total Annihilation made it through his filter. And then I saw Total Annihilation on that list, and I went, Total Annihilation? And he's like, yes.
Perfect. So we've got three more just kind of quick to go in. And I might just get, so the first one is, how do you feel if you made TA today, what it would look like? Do you think?
Well, it might look a whole lot like Bar. Do you guys call it Bar, or do you call it Beyond All Reason?
Okay. I've called it Bar mostly.
Okay, good. I'm trying to get hip. I'm trying to be hip.
Yeah,
you know, with this.
And you know, Michael, because we do two more, because I want to keep you for time there, because I feel very bad last time I kept you way too long.
I've got a few minutes. I've got a meeting at 10:30 that I cannot.
Cool. So the second one is just for the idea, and this can probably relate to your current Intergalactic Space Empire game. When creating a game from scratch, what is your usual procedure do you go through? What are the sort of mistakes you see junior developers do when designing or programming or starting a game?
Well, I think I made a junior error when I started working on Intergalactic Space Empire. But you kind of can't avoid it. So I started writing a design document that was way too ambitious. Like I literally had this, like, I don't know. I just wanted everything, and it was just foolish, completely foolish. So that's a mistake. And I think if I can make that mistake at 50, which I was when I started working on that design, maybe 51, you can make that mistake at 21. And the thing is that a design document is pretty quick, and you can blast out a lot of stuff into it, but you got to go through a phase where you boil it down. You've got to, so I would say go for it, write everything, find someone who's equally as invested in it to go over your design and be very brutally honest with you. And you have to be super mature. That maturity is not easily found in the creative process. Imagine you write what you think is the great novel of your life, and you send it to your publisher or your whoever, your friend who's got a degree in English or something, and they butcher through it and say, this whole section sucks, boring, right? Who possesses the maturity to say, okay, I'll trust you instead of trusting myself? That's a pretty big thing to get over. So starting smaller is kind of a better place to be, but maybe at 130% of your vision, and then you can kind of winnow that down to the stuff by prototyping the things that you believe are the absolute core parts of the experience, and then you can build from there. See, that's computers, right? You can always add stuff on, but you've got to have the strategic zoom, or you've got to have the component, the pillars of the experience in place. Otherwise, you can't bolt those on. There's a lot of people, I'm sure, that saw that ad, and managers went to their RTS game development teams that were halfway through the development of RTS number 39. And they said, there's no way we can do that without rebuilding the entire engine from scratch. It's the ship has sailed on that. You have to ask yourself, what ships do I need to lock down so that I don't have to go back and have that conversation? And if you abstract away, if you're a real clever programmer and you never make a decision and you abstract away everything in code, you'll go to hell, a programmer hell in a different handbasket. Okay. If you're familiar with the hell in a handbasket saying, you will just pick a different one.
So the last bit, because I know a thing that I've got one student here, and this is something we actually kind of, just in our conversations, I'd sort of talked to you about how when I play TA and the T1 and T2, and I see them as like World War I, World War II. But one of my students was sort of, you kind of described it a bit differently, this idea of merging RTS components with RGB components. So why did you find that so interesting? And you even described that like TA, you were almost doing a little RPG character. You were the commander. And as you chose to go through like bots, that was specializing you down a route like an RPG. Just talk about that a little bit, and then we'll let that be your final sort of thing.
Man, what another great, to not talk about the commander.
Yeah. That's
to
why
not talk about, it would be a tragedy.
Yeah.
When I had this realization, right? Like I think I was really on fire there, like creatively on fire, because I had these ideas, they were coming fast and furious, and I don't know like what it was. Maybe it was just buildup from working on sports. You know what I mean? I was just like, I gotta destroy stuff. But the commander, I gotta really revel in this a bit. I was like, I played chess like many people, and young, because chess is accessible. It's like soccer, right? Or football. Oh boy. And you can everybody can get a chessboard, but not everybody can get access to, more sophisticated games. So we were playing chess, and the king was a paradox. I'm sure all of you have played chess, because the king is the most powerful. Wait, no, queen is the most powerful, but wait, I'm protecting the king. Like, like, shouldn't the queen be the one that you got to take out? Because let's face it, if you're playing chess and you lose your queen, you're kind of screwed. Okay. I mean, okay, maybe not if you're Kasparov, but everyone else is screwed if they lose their queen. And I was like, I had that in my head, like stuck in my head. But I also, when I played Command and Conquer, I felt like this omniscient, not omnipotent force that overlooked the battle, and the chess thing, and the concern that I'm not in the game. I'm the player. I'm really super important, right? I've got this massive ego. I want to be in the game. So commander was just like, yeah. And the commander is going to be like your king in chess. But that's useless, because the king is useless really in chess. I mean, kind of, right? I mean, I don't want to get into a debate, but the queen is where it's at. So what if I stuck the queen and the king together into one unit? So the king is back in his base. It's you're feeling it, yeah. But hey, don't piss me off, because if I come out, I'm going to blast the shit out of everybody who basically fucks with me. There, we did it. One.
Yeah.
And that really worked. And the D gun was ridiculous. So it's like, if you got close to the commander, you were done. And like in a movie, the bad guy right, could just take anybody out except for the hero came along. That's exception. But the fact is, you got close and you were dead. And I wanted that. I wanted that power. But of course, if you create a unit that has too much power, and Jake McMahon, who tuned it, knew this, everybody would just run around with their commanders. But we had a commander death option, which meant that if you lost your commander, the game was over. Some people turned it off. I don't know if you guys played commander death on or off.
Commander death, team games, it's a bit different, but yeah, one-on-ones, absolutely commander death. That's
yeah.
how.
And it makes it special. And by the way, a little asterisk on this is your name appears on the commander, right? And I actually, my memory is starting to fail me, and we talked about this on our pre-call. But that, as I recall, was really important, because when you're flying reconnaissance and you're reconnoiter or whatever you call it over a base, and you see the commander, you're like, oh, hi. And because he moves slowly, he's not going to get to some other place really quickly. So you like, what you feel like you really got something there. You figure where, because the commander's kind of in the part of the base that they probably feel most protected, like that you can't just waltz in and kill him. So you kind of now know a lot about your enemy or your opponent. So man, the commander and all that stuff, again, all these pieces really fit together. Commander might have been OP, some may disagree. I don't know where you guys landed on that. I think it's fair to say that the folks on this call know more about that game than I do. Okay. Now you think about how weird that is. Okay. Maybe you don't know the development story and you don't know all that stuff, but you guys have probably, some of you have probably, I mean, from what I've seen, you guys have studied this far beyond. I mean, I was like hair on fire. I was working 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day for 20 months, from January 5th or 6th of 96 to when the game shipped in September. It was like, you kind of, the old saying, stop and smell the roses. Well, the roses were going by at 1,000 miles per hour. You couldn't smell anything. You smell sizzling flesh at that speed. It's almost like a tragedy of success, because once you get something that's really going well, it's like, it's really hard to take it in. I'm taking it in more today, talking to you guys on this call in 2023 than I was able to in 1997. How ironic or bizarre is that?
Hope is that we're giving you something back for that. That
you really are.
That we realize how people appreciate. I think Tavion, we'll finish up now, but I think Tavion, what you showed me some stats earlier of what is the concurrent use in bar at the moment? Like how many people are we getting a day? In fact, if you want, Tavion, I'll unmute you so you can.
Yep.
Say yeah.
I was going to bring it up now. Bear with me a moment.
Yeah. So this is Chris, just to let you know what people are playing with that Commander Death on. That they're playing the game, the ideas there, and also just that ability that you let the fan community kept building on by letting those DAT files be open and that people could look at those scripts and take that data. So there's not any code in bar that was ever in TA or Supreme Commander, but the unit, the numbers, although they've been changed a little bit, but the principle is still there. And still coming through. So do I have to give you rights to share?
No, I think I can talk. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So what I can say is that I've been doing the server for about 1.5 years, 2 years. So got number going back a little bit. And end of last year, we ended December with a peak users of 255 users all on at the same time. And 150 of those were playing all at the same time in games. So we have a huge spectator community of people coming and just watching games, which I think is also a testament to the design. We had 5,500 unique people log into the server over the December. Recently, we actually got picked up by a StarCraft 2 streamer, and we ended March with 15,000 unique users and a peak user of 1,709 playing. We've actually crested that already a few days ago. Our all-time high record is 4,000 unique, sorry, 6,700 unique users in one day, 1,400 peak users at one time. there were like almost 900 days of people using the game at that stage. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Is that
hearing you talk about
exciting?
this is fantastic.
You're sort of experiencing what I experienced 26 years ago, seeing people kind of catching on,
Oh yeah,
kind of seeing that curve. You're seeing the hockey stick.
it literally is a hockey stick graph as well. I can show you at some other point.
So what I'm
26
gonna
years later, you brought life back to. It's like you guys are who made the Lord of the Rings movies. You know, you take an old book that we all read in the 80s and 70s, and you bring it.
Our
You bring
Peter
it to the
Jackson
screen.
team.
It's worth clarifying quickly. I just do the server and I joined late.
Yeah, so
The others that you
might
see
just-
here,
for
they've
the
been
guys
doing
on
it
the
longer
call,
than me. It
as
did more.
we're finishing. Obviously, I'm going to connect you guys with Chris there. We'll get a joint email there because especially I think the guys would love you, Chris, to come on and just talk and see a few games with the guys. Tyvian was recommending Sundays, I think Pacific time, like 2 p.m. or so. We're always online. But the guys from the team there, if you just want to turn on your cameras and just at least say hi to Chris, I think you will be
Yes.
absolutely awesome. Just as we're finishing up, just introduce yourself. Tell them what you're doing.
Yeah, I've got 14 minutes.
You got 14 minutes, and I'm going to turn the recording off to let people kind of finish up in the room. Actually, no, I won't let anything. Give the guys credit where credit's due. So, anybody in the bar team want to say hi there to Chris?
Yeah, hi there, Chris. Marcus Hutchings here. Yeah, I absolutely love Total Annihilation and everything you've done for the community. Supreme Commander and all that. Absolutely fantastic. Huge fan in that respect. And your attention to detail to Total Annihilation and the physics and that it specifically touches me closely because I actually work in the engine for Beyond All Reason, where I actually working in the deterministic simulation and networking models. So that is a particular area of interest of mine.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
I appreciate that. It's amazing feeling that there's people like you all in the world that care. Like I'm getting this, like I'm relating to the people who have done things in other professions in their lifetimes that have people that care and what it feels like. It's a feeling you don't have very often. And obviously there's nowhere to relate to it from habit. It's like, this is like a first time. Anyway, I want to hear from the rest of you guys. I'm going to shut up.
There's another 2 more, I think, at least there. Tive, if I'm missing anybody,
No,
Anybody
so
else?
Harith, you go next.
Yeah, well, I've been doing bar for more than a decade now, so
What?
it's an honor to, yeah, 13 years, but 3 of those were a little bit laid back.
Wow. You've spent, think about it. I spent 20 months plus the expansion pack for 6 months. So call it 2.25 years. And you spent 13. So maybe it boils down to 10, but regardless, your actual time, whatever you're saying, like area under the curve calculation, but that's easily 4 to 5 times the time that I've spent on it. You are the subject matter expert. We should all be listening to you on this call.
Thank you.
It sounds hyperbolic, but it's probably true. Amazing.
Anybody else want to join in before we finish up? And I'll connect you guys all afterwards on email.
Okay, so may I just so Chris, I think I was 7 when I launched your game, like the first time, and since then I was like I'm just addicted to this experience. Like throughout my life, I've played different iterations of TA, and well, I'm still here. So yeah,
Wow.
You've been a big part of my life. I can just tell you.
Oh, wow. I made a note quickly. I wanted to tell you guys, maybe we'll save it for another time, about the data-driven design model. And maybe I'll give you a teaser and say that the only reason I had the thought or insight to create a data-driven engine was because of Hardball 2, because all the baseball teams were data-driven. You couldn't hard code the baseball, and they had an editor. I shipped an editor with the game so people could create their own teams. That's a whole thing. So when I started working on the ARM and the core, which was inspired, by the way, from Foundation, if you guys are Asimov fans, or Heinlein, it was like, I don't know how many factions are going to be. So I'm going to go to the directory and I'm going to do a query and see how many definitions there are. And I'm going to allocate the memory and build out the build. And so you guys, you know, that was such another pivotal thing that I learned from Hardball too. Anyway, I wanted to sneak that in because that was like really important also, because you guys wouldn't have, like, a lot of what happened going forward with Total Annihilation in the mod community and the units of the week couldn't happen unless there was that underlying architect. It was literally like lightning. This game was like lightning in a bottle. That's what I mean, you know, like when I was trying to find words for it, it's like you can't take out any of these elements. They all had to come together to make this thing happen. And to hear what you're saying, and all you guys are just, I got to go straight from this call where I'm all emotional and kind of messed up, straight into a call with my boss to talk about some boring enterprise cloud shit. Okay, so
we will let you go, and just thank you so much. It's been great to hear from you and the stories, and I think it's very inspiring for games program class, because for us, we're doing games development, we're a computer science school, so this is the only chance the students really get to be a bit creative. So we're just really honored by you being part here, and I'm also honored by the bar guys. You kept me sane as well during a pandemic, and let me play test with you guys and take actually my feedback and my friends' feedback, which was amazing. And just, it's been great, Chris. And what I'm gonna do is connect you up, because I really feel the bar guys, they would just love you just to be at a couple of, just talking a few things, just get to see a game, commentate. They would love it. And I think you'd enjoy it too, I have a feeling as well. But we'll give you a bit more time to decompress after as well. So
yeah, I'll come and commentate. I mean, I got this cool microphone coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
I want to check it out. And one of the things you've inspired me to do, and by the way, I'm the one who's honored. I want to tell you that. And one of the things that has kind of happened lately is that I think the stories, you know, are good to share, and it makes me feel good. And if people can get value and it can help them be inspired in their game design journeys that they're on, or development journeys. And that's why I bought this rig, because I want to do some sessions where we have, I jump on something super easy for me to do, and I answer questions and just talk, and probably get into some trouble. Because if you guys know me, when I get talking, I go off track and I don't have boundaries. So some people like that. So we'll see if that works.
well, I hope I've been able to direct a little bit.
You did great. You did fantastic. Thank you.
So, but it was fantastic to have you guys. So I'm going to turn this off now. So we're going to say goodbye technically in the recording. So
Bye, everyone.
there, bye everybody.